Life is wonderful, life is absurd, and we need a robust vocabulary to tell the truth of this story. I think one of the things that I'm constrained by in my life, one of the things that compels me to seek out new language, to seek out words that I don't hear very often within the realm of art in the Christian world, is that I'm looking for something to help me understand my life, which I do not understand. And it's not enough to just receive things that are positive and encouraging. Sometimes it's okay, but that can't be the only ingredient. You can't just have sugar in the cake, right? You've got to have the other ingredients for a cake to be a cake. So why do we need truth? Why do we need a robust vocabulary? Why do we need to be fluent in risk-taking within our art? Why do we need the truth? We need the truth because the truth is what leads us to grace. And grace is essential to human thriving. Sometimes somebody will say to me, I feel like I'm lacking in awareness of grace in my life. And my first thought is always, oh, that's because you're missing a piece of the truth. Once upon a time, my church family, we had buried a dear man who died very young from cancer. And we were sitting in our seats, waiting for the preacher to get up and say something that would make everything make sense. And what he said that day, I will never forget as long as I live. It actually changed my life forever. He didn't just say these words that I'm about to read to you. He screamed them. He was doubled over in anguish. He was suffering. He was in his own suffering over the loss of this young man. He was overcome with sadness from the loss of this beloved young husband and father of 3. And he said to us, do you have questions about why this happened? Well, don't ask me for answers because I don't have any answers. If you have questions, you take them to God. You ask Him. And it was as if a nuclear bomb of grace exploded into the room and covered us in a blanket of belovedness. And we sat there, still with no answers, but now we suddenly had room to live and breathe and be human in this almost unbearable moment. Our preacher did not give us platitudes and propaganda. He took a risk and he told the truth. He told the whole story. Sometimes, when we don't have the answers that we think that we're supposed to have, we turn our face to rely on propaganda. Do you ever feel that pressure to have answers that you don't have? Do you ever feel that pressure within your discipline of art that you've got to supply answers to the world? But maybe your life is missing answers. Maybe all you have are questions. And maybe you've said to yourself that questions aren't good enough for art. Brothers, sisters, the best art is exploding with questions. When we don't have the answers that we think that we're supposed to have, sometimes we turn and rely on propaganda. God will never give you more than you can handle. How many of you have gone to Hobby Lobby and bought that sign and hung it on your living room wall? And as soon as you did it, all hell broke loose. And you took it down off the wall and you went and got your money back. God is in control. God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. That has to be the worst one. It's hanging on walls everywhere in Christendom. This is why the world needs you, because corporations are printing those things left and right and selling them for millions of dollars. Everything happens for a reason. If you're an artist, your vocation is inherently prophetic. You are on the forward edge. You will be misunderstood, and that's okay. That's actually the price you pay for being in the guild. You should never set out on this journey with expectations of immediate applause. Actually, if you disassociate yourself from the hopes of finances and fame, you will have solved 90% of your issues with your pursuit of art. There's something else that needs to drive you. There's an inner prophetic passion that has pushed you into this, beckoned you into this. God invited you into this. Money doesn't own you. I'm not saying that there won't eventually be finances associated with your craft, but I'm saying that's not the driver, that's not the gas in your engine. God put something inside of you that the world needs. And he's really serious about that thing not being overwhelmed or taken hostage by the propaganda machines. It's okay if you're misunderstood. You have to be one of those who resists and refuses to yield to the powers and principalities that demand that we speak of God only in the most reduced forms possible. You know, positive encouraging, I hate to keep picking on this, but that's a reductionist view of God, and God will not be held in that box. There's so much of God that needs to be explored that refuses to be held within that box. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel like Christian radio is like McDonald's. If you're starving to death and you come across a Big Mac, it will save your life. I will kill that Big Mac. I will love that Big Mac. But I cannot get up and eat Big Macs every day for the rest of my life. I have to have something else. I have to have something other than empty calories in my life. I have to have the artist, the prophet, saying something to me that I don't understand at first. I need the artist to say something to me that it's going to have to make me work to interpret it. You know, God could have explained the gospel way easier than he did, but he decided to make it hard. There must be something about the joy of discovery that he knows about that we don't know yet. You and I were created to discover things. It's hard on purpose. I'm going to say that last part again. You have to be the one who resists and refuses to yield to the powers and principalities that demand that we speak of God only in the most reduced forms possible. If you agree to those terms, you will have a better chance in Christian music or Christian publishing in their current forms. The thing I love about forms, though, is they're made to be broken. I mean, I think about this all the time. When I'm talking to young artists, young songwriters, young writers, this is true of anything. Like if you're a drummer, I've heard so many jazz drummers talk about this. They spend their entire life practicing the fundamentals, the rudiments of drumming. They give their entire lives to learning the form of drumming. But they don't do it so that they can stay within that form. They do it so that they can go beyond the form. That's where we're trying to go. We're trying to go beyond what we know into the new. Are you with me? Am I losing everybody in here? Okay, we're okay. All right. Okay. So here's the thing. I just want you tonight, I want you to be set free. You are being invited, you are being given permission this weekend to write what you want to write, to say what you want to say, to paint what you want to paint, to sculpt what you want to sculpt, to build what you want to build. And you don't have to be an echo of all of the things around you that are just echoes of other things. You might have to go out into the world, actually. You might have to go to, Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan and stare at a Cy Twombly for 2 hours to be inspired. God does not require that you sanitize your story in order to protect his reputation. God does not require that you sanitize the story that you're going to tell in order to protect his reputation. If God was concerned with his reputation, he wouldn't have put all of the atrocities that you see all across the Bible. He would have given us a sanitized version of the story. But he gave us a tough, gritty, absurd, strange, hard to understand story. God does not need you to be his PR firm. He does not need you to be his press secretary. A faithful witness is one that tells the whole story, not the sanitized version of the story. God isn't afraid of human beings being human. How many of you guys heard a few cultural references in my songs last night? Baja Blast, Marlboro cigarettes, Buc-ee's, Shot the Sheriff, yes, yes. The reason why I do that is because, first of all, it's just clever. And it's funny. And I think that one of the side effects of faith is that you get a sense of humor. The more you trust in God, the more fun you will have. And when I say trust in God, what I mean is you take all of the metaphysics that you think that you know about who God is, and you take whatever theological position. We all have theological positions are a lot like political positions. We have them. They're important. They're not unimportant. But at the end of the day, our theological position is not what saves us. The man Jesus Christ does. And I'm just fully trusting that his goodness is sufficient for the human race. And what that sets me free to do is it sets me free to tell my whole story. Unashamedly, even if I'm misunderstood, even if the church rejects me. But what's so fascinating is when the church rejects me, what's interesting is I meet so many people who are on their way out of faith because of the evangelical Christian constructs that they've been given. They come across a song with Marlboro cigarettes in it, and I'm not doing it as an evangelical tool, I promise you that. The worst thing that you could do with your art is make it a utilitarian tool to save people. Do not do that. Just make great art. But what inevitably happens is that somebody hears something like that and it sparks something inside of them. It gives them permission to not be ashamed of their life. It gives them permission to not be ashamed of being a human being. I mean, it's not that we don't need redeeming and sanctifying. We do. But our path of transformation isn't the process of becoming something that we're not. It's the process of realizing that God created us to be human and celebrating our humanity the same way that God did in Christ. He became human. Being a human is not something to cure. It's something to embrace. It's something to grow into in the goodness of God. We are difficult creatures. We're hard to pin down and oftentimes not easy to love, and our story proves that out. When we insist on propagandizing our story rather than telling the whole truth of our story, what we reveal is that we are anxious and quite nervous and insecure that possibly God is disappointed with us. So when a writer or an artist or a musician or a dancer or a potter or an entrepreneur communicates from their gut the things that they really think and the things that they really feel, they are trusting God, and in a sense, they are walking by faith, relying fully on the grace of God. And when someone relies fully on the grace of God, well then, all things are possible. So here's what I want to do tonight. I want to bless you. I want to give you a priestly blessing tonight. I want to bless you with audacity and boldness. I want to bless you with a strong back that can endure the years that it will take for you to master your craft. I want to bless you with sinewy muscles that can stand many failures long enough to experience the satisfaction of success. I bless you with a new naivete, with eyes that can see miracles everywhere in your everyday, ordinary life. I bless you with the ability to fall down many times while you work to hone your skills and then to get back up. I bless you with a heart that will grow ill if you ever utilize cynicism as a tool in your tool belt. I bless you with being comfortable in your own skin. I want to tell you, you are not a problem to fix. You may have problems that need to be addressed, but you are not a problem that needs to be fixed. I bless you that you would discover the joy of your own belovedness, so much so that it would immediately cause you to be unafraid to try to build the project that is in your heart. So, kind of like what I did last night with that big old risk that Josh Scott pushed me into last night. And it was an incredible success and not a failure. I'm going to take another risk tonight, a risk of my own. And I'm going to close with some thoughts that I had one day as I was paying attention to the details of my life. The details of your life really matter. Sometimes people say to me they don't know what to write about. I say, go stand in front of your kitchen window and look at the birds in your bird feeder. Start there. That's what I do. Just pay attention. I want to tell you part of my whole story. A charismatic Christian, a Hindu, and a rabbit walk into a bar. No, really. No, actually. I'm leaving Houston. I'm standing outside of my hotel waiting for an Uber. I'm minding my own business, waiting for a ride to the airport so I can fly to Cincinnati. I'm thinking deep thoughts. I'm thinking, what in the hell has happened to this world? Has everyone gone mad? Are we just capitulating to the culture? Will we ultimately find ourselves on the wrong side of history? Are we actually agreeing that IPAs taste good? And as I'm thinking this, my Uber pulls up and the driver jumps out of his car and he grabs my bags. His 3 large beaded necklaces swinging, his head shaved except for a small ponytail protruding from the back of his skull. In a thick New Jersey accent, he frantically asks me if I'm okay if his pet rabbit rides along with us in the car. I kid you not, in the front passenger seat is a massive white rabbit sitting in a litter box, twitching his ears with the confidence of a small, meaty creature who is resting in the blessed assurance of their keeper's vegetarianism. Rabbit in the passenger seat of my Uber? Of course I'm okay with this. I live for moments like this. This is the kind of situation that will wind up being in my talk at Creative Legacy. The driver's name is William, and as he is driving, he begins to proselytize me, and I am up for it. He tells me that prior to 2019, he wanted nothing to do with religion, but he converted to Hinduism after a friend took him to a temple for a service where he had a radical encounter with God. I said, oh, I know exactly what you were talking about. I too have had experiences with Jesus the Christ. In fact, I may be having one right now. And we began to swap our tales of spiritual encounters. Now, someone could get mad at me for not setting this precious man straight. Maybe I should have said, you poor, poor New Jerseyan bastard. Your metaphysics are a disaster. I don't really have much of an excuse for myself, but what I can tell you is that what I lack in apologetical acumen, I make up for in good looks and great personality. But seriously, I'm just a person who can sometimes tell when God walks into the room. And I could feel the grace of God fill that car. I am the richest man in the world. And now I'm walking down the street in my neighborhood with my wife, Amy. And our neighbor, Helen, is standing in her driveway holding a shovel. She turned 97 yesterday. And she was out digging debris out of her drainage ditch. We stopped to compare notes with her one evening. We stopped to compare notes with her on the evening's weather, and Helen is wearing a V-neck blouse with a deeply plunging neckline, and the only thing that the cleavage of a 97-year-old woman on full display can make you say is, "Go, Helen." Which is what we said, and we continued on our walk. And again, now I'm standing behind a woman in church who lost her daughter to an autoimmune disease, and she's raising her hands, singing at the tops of her lungs, God won't fail me, God won't fail me, God has never let me down. And I'm watching this, and I'm being crushed under the preciousness of it. We are the richest people in the world. We are pressed down on every side. We are perplexed. We are struck down. But there is no better life to be had anywhere. Christ is the treasure. Sometimes we know it, and sometimes we don't. But all the while we are breaking ecstatic under the astonishing weight of his never-failing love. And that's it.